welcome back to my garden. It's Christina from Our Wood Home. This video was filmed at the end of July and I wanted to give you guys a mid-season garden update, I guess. I'm hoping to still have a fair bit of warm weather, but we'll see. So the veggie garden, not much has changed besides a lot of growing. I did harvest a row of beets. I think those were called Early Wonder, and I've been pickling them. I'm going to let the Detroit Dark Reds stay for a bit longer. I haven't picked any potatoes yet, but I'm thinking I probably should. I'll show you in a minute, or a second I guess, but the tomato plants have been getting chewed by the hornworms. We don't really see them on the plants, but we see the damage on the leaves, which is obviously an indicator that the worms are there. But I think the little birds that live in our garden have been picking off the hornworms before they do a lot of damage, but I still want to pick, or I guess harvest, the potatoes before the plants get too damaged. We've been going out almost every day in the garden looking for the hornworms and we're not finding a lot, so the only explanation we can think of is the birds are eating them. So you can see here they've stripped the leaves off of this plant, and they are getting to the tomatoes as well, just chewing some leaves like you'd see on the potatoes, but not enough to do damage to the plants, which is good, but we still have to keep an eye on them because we have had our tomato plants stripped before. Speaking of tomatoes, these 3 rows are all tomatoes of different varieties. I can't remember what they all are, but I do have a chart in my homemaking binder that lists what each variety is. Most of them are heirloom. The one on the far right there was grown from some seeds my mom brought back from Croatia a few years ago. But as you can see, the tomatoes are doing really well. Some of them are a little bit bushy and kind of started spilling out of their cages, which is fine. But I'm glad that I left so much room in between the rows because we definitely need it. Trying to weed under there is quite difficult because the plants are so bushy. Still no tomatoes to harvest yet, but I'm hoping soon. Our apple trees are doing pretty well. We didn't have any tent caterpillars this year, which is great. We have a few apples on this tree. I can't remember how many, but not a ton. I think between the 2 trees we've got maybe 12 to 15 apples. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's pretty exciting for us. This tree is Macintosh, I believe, and then the other one, I think my husband said, is a hybrid, so it has a bunch of different apples growing on it. I'm not sure what kind of apples, but I guess we'll see as they continue to ripen. I'm hoping that I can maybe make pie or an apple crisp with the apples from these 2 trees this fall. We always get a ton of apples from David's grandma. She's got Macintosh trees and crabapple trees, which is great, but I'd also like to maybe use my own apples this year, in addition to all the extras that we'll probably get from her as well. We didn't get any cherries on our cherry trees this year. We had a few, but I think the birds must have gotten to them, or maybe it was just too dry and we didn't get any that ripened. I'm not sure, but I did look at the cherry trees when I was filming this and there was nothing on them, so I didn't bother going over to those trees. My cabbage plants are not doing well at all. They were doing okay, and then I noticed a lot of cabbage moths, or I guess caterpillars on the plants chewing the leaves. So I read that you can plant thyme around cabbages and that will deter the caterpillars from chewing and the moths from laying their eggs on the plants. So I did that and it seemed to be working, but just as an extra precaution, I also sprinkled equal parts flour and baking soda on the plant because that was also supposed to be a deterrent. But as you'll see in a minute, it didn't seem to work because there's a ton of what I'm assuming to be the moth larvae. I have seen a fair number of cabbage moths around the plants and I didn't really think anything of it, until this day when I noticed all of the little, I think it's the eggs, maybe it's something else, but it's growing right around the main center cabbage thingy. So I think I'm just going to cut my losses with these plants and just pull them out and try doing cabbages again next year with some proactive companion planting. I doubt I'll get any cabbage big enough worth harvesting this year, and I'd rather just pull the plants out and let the lettuces, I don't think lettuces is a word, let the lettuce plants that are growing behind the cabbage continue to grow and mature, because the lettuce has been doing pretty well. So while I'm disappointed that I have to get rid of the cabbage, I'm choosing to look at this as a learning experience and just make note of what I can do better next year so that I can have a more successful cabbage yield, because I think that it is something that does grow pretty well in this area, and I've heard it's a pretty hardy crop if you can get away from the cabbage moths. So we'll see for next year. In the area where I planted beans and peas, I've had okay results, but nowhere near what I had hoped. So my creeping thyme always does well, that's never a concern. But the two snow pea plants on either side have definitely been a disappointment. I'm not sure if maybe they're just too dry because we've had a pretty dry summer so far, but they're not really yielding much and the plants look pretty pathetic. The beans are doing okay, still nothing to pick from them. I did have 2 bush beans and then the pole bean in the middle, but I accidentally pulled out a bush bean plant, so now I just have the one. I did have 2 little tomato plants here. They did not do well. My dog accidentally squished one with a toy, so now I just have this little one. And honestly, I have no hopes for it to produce any fruit before we get frost, but I'm just going to keep it there anyways. Moving on to the herbs section, and yes, that is a hosta. I know it's not an herb, but I just haven't transplanted it yet. The herbs are doing well. I've had a bunch of harvests already. I've brought some in to dry. It looks like something has been chewing my basil plants. I'm not really sure what it is. The chipmunk we've had in here has definitely been pulling up my sunflower seeds, which is not cool because I really wanted those to grow. But the basil, spearmint, and dill, they all seem to be doing pretty well. And of course, the ever-present creeping thyme is doing well. In this garden, I planted some echinacea and calendula seeds, which didn't end up sprouting, and I'm not sure if it's just because the chipmunk got to them or what happened, but yeah, they definitely didn't grow. I think I need to start them indoors much sooner and then bring them out instead of trying to sow the seeds directly into the soil. But my dill is doing well, as you can see, so I'm pretty pleased with that. Our raspberry plant, black raspberry plant, did pretty well considering I had cut it back down to the ground in the spring. I got enough berries to make a very, very small jar of jam, and then there were a few left on the bush, but when I came out the next day to see if any had ripened, they were all picked off, presumably by that pesky little chipmunk, but I'm not 100% sure. Moving on to my big planters around the patio. Again, I did not weed anything because I just wanted to get this video filmed. My tomato plants that I put here are doing pretty well. There are some tomatoes on them. Can't remember what variety these are. I think they might be Russian, and they're definitely a lot smaller than the ones in the garden, but they're still doing all right. So I'm happy about that. I've had tomatoes in the planters before, and they've done surprisingly well. But they tend to get pretty big and crazy, so I didn't really like the idea of putting them in here in future years. These plants were just in here because I forgot that I had them and didn't have any more space in the veggie garden. But they're all right. This space was empty anyways. So growing behind it are some English cucumbers, which the plants are doing well. I've only had 1 cucumber to pick, but I'm thinking I'll get some more. There's some little buds popping out and there's all those nice flowers on them. I am going to be transplanting all my daylilies out of here and turning these into just vegetable planters. So once again, I didn't weed anything, so you're going to be seeing a lot of wild grasses and stuff in the planters, but it's fine. I did notice something eating my pepper plants, so I'm going to have to do some research about that because it's not great. I haven't noticed this before, and I haven't had any issues in the past with anything eating them. So if you have any ideas what that could be and how to deter it, please let me know. On this side of the planter, I've got some dill. Again, it's doing really well. I grew it from seed, and I've heard that herbs can sometimes be hard to grow from seed. Maybe dill's just an easy one, but I'm pretty pleased with it. Here's another shot of the English cucumbers. They're really, really big. The plants are big, I mean. It actually goes all the way up over the fencing there, which I didn't notice at first. We'll probably be trimming that balsam poplar tree just to make sure the plants get more sunlight. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm thinking all of the flowers will have a cucumber. There's one. And in Canada, sometimes our growing season goes right until October. Sometimes we get a frost in September. It's hard to say. This little cucumber plant is not doing well. I am not hopeful for it at all, but I'll keep it there anyways. Moving on to my broccoli plants. I bought these at a greenhouse. They were seedlings. I had the same problem with the cabbage worms that I had on my cabbage plants. And I did plant thyme here as well, and I sprinkled the baking soda and flour, and it seemed to work well. I don't know if it was the thyme or the powder mixture, but the plants are doing well. I haven't seen any new damage to the leaves, and there's actually little broccolis coming in. I'm pretty excited about that. The camera does focus in. There we go. I was using my professional camera, not the iPad, to film, so that's why I kind of struggled a bit with the manual focus, because it's kind of a clunky camera. I have a total of 4 broccoli plants. These 2 are doing the best. The other 2, not so much. They're still pretty small, but I think they've recovered from the damage, so I'm just going to keep them here as long as possible until the frost. But I have heard that they're frost hardy, so we'll see about that. I've got some more daylilies and some more cucumber. These are pickling cucumber. I've already picked several from these 2 plants, and I've done fermented pickles as well as just regular pickles. I should probably harvest these before they get much bigger. There is a yellow one in here, and I'm not sure why so many of them keep turning yellow, but I've read that it's a sign of maybe overwatering, which is weird because I didn't think we had that problem in these gardens. This is just a weird shaped cucumber. I think I'll just let it grow and see what it turns into. But yeah, these plants are doing really well here. I'm pretty happy about that. I'm hoping that all these flowers will also turn into cucumbers, and then I'll have a nice yield until we get frost. The plants were not sticking to the fencing very easily, so I did use a bungee cord just to kind of tether them, and then they kept growing on their own, so that worked really well. I also had some carrots and parsnip in here that I planted from seed. They did not grow at all, but that's okay. I didn't really think they would. So that's it for the veggies. I just filmed some of my chickens because they're pretty entertaining to watch, and I thought you guys might enjoy seeing them at the close of this video. I hope you also enjoyed having a garden update. I know it probably wasn't very exciting, but it's real life and I still wanted to share that with you anyways. As I said, our growing season in Canada can vary. We might get frost even the end of August, in September, or we might not get anything until October, maybe even end of October. It's really hard to say. but I'm still hoping that we get enough nice warm weather for all of the veggies to continue ripening so that we can actually get a good harvest this year. But if not, I guess that's okay too. So anyways, thank you so much for coming along as I show you my gardens. I hope you liked what you saw. If so, feel free to leave a comment or give this video a thumbs up. And if you like the other content on my channel, I hope you consider subscribing. Thank you so much.